Do you want your Amigurumi plushie to sit naturally? Or do you want the legs to move so it can sit and stand? In this tutorial, I'll show you two different ways to sew Amigurumi legs. The first method is a straight seam under the bottom. This creates a cute sitting pose with the legs pointing forward. The second method is a side hip attachment. This creates a movable leg joint so the plushie can sit or stand more easily. Both methods are useful. The best one depends on the pose you want for your plushie. Today, I'll show you both techniques step by step, so your Amigurumi legs look neat, balanced, and secure. Step 1. Adjust the stuffing at the opening of the leg. Before we close the leg opening, we need to adjust the amount of stuffing near the top of the leg. Usually, when we stuff an Amigurumi piece, we tend to fill the stuffing all the way up to the opening. But for this leg sewing method, we need to remove a little bit of stuffing from the top. The opening of the leg should not be too full or too firm. We only need a small amount of stuffing near this area so we can close the opening into a clean straight edge. This also creates a slight indentation, which helps the plushie sit more naturally. If you remove too much stuffing, just add a little bit back in, like I'm doing in the video. Try to leave about 1 to 2 centimeters near the opening with little to no stuffing inside. This empty space will make it much easier to flatten and sew the opening closed. As you can see in the video, I also added a fabric lining inside the leg before stuffing it. This lining helps keep the stuffing from coming out through the crochet stitches, especially after washing. It also makes the plushie more durable. Step 2. Sew the two edges of the leg opening together. First, check the color change jog again. Make sure this little step is placed in the middle of the closing seam. Now we can start sewing the two edges of the leg opening together. Sew the edges closed by joining each pair of opposite loops. Work through one matching pair at a time and continue sewing each pair together in order, just like this. Watch the movement carefully in the video. If you sew through the correct matching loops, the joined loops will appear very neat and clear. Here, I'm using red thread so you can see the sewing path more easily. But when you make your actual plushie, use thread that matches the color of the leg. This will help the stitches blend in and stay hidden. Sewing the two edges of the leg into one straight edge makes the next step much easier when we attach the leg to the body. It helps you see each matching stitch more clearly, place your needle faster and more accurately, and create a cleaner, neater seam. After this step, the leg opening should be closed into a smooth, straight edge. Repeat the same process for the other leg. Make sure the amount of stuffing and the empty space near the opening are similar to the first leg. These two preparation steps will also be repeated at the beginning of the second leg sewing method. Now let's move on to method 1, sitting legs, using a straight seam under the body. First, we need to find the sewing position by looking at the magic ring at the bottom of the body. From the magic ring, count about 3 rounds across, in the same horizontal direction as the arm. This will be your first point. To find the second point, make sure it sits on the same straight line from the magic ring toward the arm. I usually stretch the sewing thread toward the arm to check the direction. At this point, the magic ring, point number 1, point number 2, and the arm position should all sit on the same imaginary horizontal plane across the body. You can place another stitch marker here. Now place the leg along the straight line between those 2 points. Make sure the color change jog is facing toward the back of the plushie. Start sewing from right to left. As you sew, keep watching the edge of the leg carefully. The edge of the leg should always stay on the straight line between point 1 and point 2. Follow the same movement I'm showing in the video. Insert the needle from the top through the loop on the leg. Pull the thread gently, then insert the needle into the matching hole underneath on the body. Bring the needle out through the next hole on the body. Then, insert the needle again from the top through the next matching loop on the leg. Please watch the needle movement carefully in the video. The preparation step we did earlier makes this part much easier, because now we can clearly see each loop pair and sew them in order. That is why the seam becomes very neat, clean, and even. I'm sewing step by step here, but once you understand the needle movement, you can speed up this part. Continue sewing until you reach point number 1 on the left side. To finish, make a knot on the thread and hide it inside the body so the sewing thread is secured firmly. And here is the result. What do you think of the seam? It looks neat and orderly, right? When you use yellow thread that matches the body, the seam will blend into the crochet stitches. Unless you look very closely, it will be hard to see the sewing line, so the connection between the legs and the body will look very clean. If you ever need to cut the seam open to fix or replace the leg, you can easily find the exact sewing line. Now let's move on to method 2, rotating hip legs. This sewing method creates a flexible hip joint for the legs, so the plushie can sit or stand more easily. In this part, we will focus on 2 important things: how to build a strong foundation for the leg joint, and how to create an anti-stretch connection between the 2 legs. Before we start, prepare both legs using the first 2 preparation steps from the beginning of this video. First, we need to mark the joint position on the body. I usually place this point at around 20% of the body length, measured from the bottom of the body. This will be the main connection point for the rotating hip joint. Now we are going to reinforce this point with sewing thread. Insert the needle out through the hole on the left side of the center point, then sew across to the hole on the right side of the center point. Repeat this about 3 times. This creates a thicker thread layer at the joint area, making the connection point stronger and more durable. Later, when a child pulls the leg while playing, this reinforced area will help protect the crochet fabric from stretching, tearing, or wearing out too quickly. Pull the thread firmly as you sew, so this area becomes a strong and stable anchor point. Now we can start attaching the first leg. Make sure the color change jog is hidden on the inside, and the cleaner side of the crochet stitches is facing outward. Insert the needle into the center left point on the leg, between round 2 and round 3, from the inside to the outside. Please watch the video carefully here, because the direction of the needle is very important. Then insert the needle into the 3rd hole on the right side of the leg and pass the needle into the matching connection point on the body. Pull the thread tightly. When the connection point on the leg and the connection point on the body are aligned, pull the sewing thread firmly so the 2 parts are attached closely together. Now sew over this joint a few more times to secure it. I usually sew over the same connection about 3 times. This makes the first hip joint strong enough to rotate, but still firmly attached to the body. Next is a hidden step that you cannot see from the outside, but it is very important. We are going to create a connection between the 2 legs to stop them from stretching too far apart over time. This is one of my secret techniques to make the plushie much more durable. Without this connecting thread, the 2 legs can be pulled in opposite directions while a child is playing. Over time, this can stretch the belly area outward, making the plushie look uneven and causing the body stitches to loosen or tear more easily. After you try this technique, pull one leg gently and you will understand why it works. The 2 legs and the belly structure will feel much more stable and better supported. Now insert the needle into the connection point of the first leg. Then pass the needle through the body and bring it out at the opposite side. where the second leg will be attached. This next step is the key to making this technique work. You may need to practice this part a few times. We need to control the tension of the thread inside the belly and create a slight indentation at both hip joints. Here is how I do it. Use your right hand to pull the thread firmly. At the same time, use the thumb of your left hand to press down on the second connection point. Press it slightly inward to create a small hollow. While holding that indentation in place, sew and secure the point immediately. Only release your left hand after the point is fixed. When this step is done correctly, you should see that the second connection point sinks in slightly. That small indentation means the thread inside the belly has the right amount of tension. If the point does not sink in, it means the connecting thread is still too loose, and the anti-stretch support has not worked yet. Once the second point is fixed and slightly indented, sew over that same point about 3 more times. This reinforces the foundation for the second hip joint, just like we did on the first side. Now we can attach the second leg. Again, make sure the color change jog is hidden on the inside, and the cleaner side of the crochet stitches is facing outward. Insert the needle into the center left point on the leg, between round 2 and round 3, from the inside to the outside. Then, insert the needle into the third hole on the right side of the leg, and pass the needle into the matching reinforced point on the body. Pull the thread tightly. When the body and leg connection points are aligned, pull the sewing thread firmly so the leg sits closely against the body. Then sew over the joint a few more times to secure it. I usually sew over the same area about 3 times to make sure the leg joint is strong and stable. To finish, make a secure knot and hide the thread tail inside the body. And that's it. Here is the final result. Now rotate and gently pull the legs to test the quality of the joint. You can see that the connection point is small but very strong. The legs can rotate, the plushie can sit or stand, and the body structure stays firm because of the hidden anti-stretch connection between the 2 legs. If you found this technique helpful, subscribe to Andy the Plushie for more amigurumi sewing tips and crochet plushie tutorials. In the next videos, I'll share more techniques for sewing and embroidering facial details on amigurumi plushies. And if you haven't watched it yet, you can also check out my arm sewing tutorial on the channel. Thanks for watching the video. See you!